industrial related was Maggie Trout has often called me with something that only she can hear, and it's just she can't sleep at night, and she,
windy noise.
Yes, and what you hear.
Same what I hear. Maggie and me.
But
When I first year on council, the only noise complaints I got were related to 2 bars. You know, but for each additional year I've been on council, we get more of these. You know, I heard of whining all night. I don't know where it was from, and we in the summertime, at least I get a fairly steady stream of them from a variety of people. Now,
Around town?
Huh?
Around town?
Or is it?
Yes.
Different places, yeah.
Yeah. Penn Bay Acres,
Yeah.
North End, South End, Midtown.
I wonder why you get them and I don't. That's strange.
Because he picks up the phone.
We'll have to give John's cell number out to
In the
the
middle of the
public.
night.
More people are getting hearing aids these days, huh?
Well, I mean, the quieter the community becomes, the more noticeable
Yeah.
noises also become that are
Right.
out of the norm. So you got kind of this background level, and then you get something that exceeds that background level noise, and it becomes noticeable.
It was the same thing we went through with odors. But, some of us knew that in certain businesses that CPRO wasn't the only problem, and that you can't operate a wastewater treatment plant with no odor control in the back of Main Street, just accepting industrial waste at 90 degrees centigrade. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
But until CPRO went away, there wasn't complaints about FMC and CP. When CPRO goes away, you get a ton of complaints.
I can tell you in the summer, FMC opens up a building, and that's when I hear it. That windy noise that goes on for hours and hours and hours.
That's because you're at the top of the hill.
Yeah, well, if I go, like I said before, if I go to the first floor, I can't hear it. But up on the second floor,
How it travels.
yeah, right over the trees and all that.
I have no
Kind of
idea
a high spot.
where it would fly. I have no.
What door do they open, Well, I guess it would be to the boiler room, and it's the steam going through the pipe.
Yeah, and I will say, when I've called them, they've reacted positively. They closed the doors. And
That'd be surprising, it's their process, their manufacturing process.
There's the building, was it building 1 down the waterfront? But there's a building 2, the one that faces Lehrman's Cove. That one you have to wear ear protection. It's pretty loud.
Yeah.
That's surprised with them as well.
Uh-huh.
I think it's actually louder than the boiler room.
Could be.
I don't know why. I forget which one.
yeah, facing Lehrman's Cove, that would make sense. So,
And I can hear. I can hear when the leaves are off the trees. I can hear FMC inside my house with the windows closed
Really?
in the wintertime. Like,
in the winter,
Yeah, because it
oh,
carries.
yes. Huh?
I like that.
Let's shut down my
Tinnitus,
FMC.
tinnitus. That's tinnitus, so I'm hearing it all day, 24/7, including right now.
I wish,
It's all the radio waves in the air.
again, order,
Is your wife screaming at you all the time?
most people, this is only a 150 kilowatt unit, but that picture of Scarborough, that's in that lower parking lot. So above there is the main parking lot, and you walk into the town hall right there. So everyone is within eyeshot, and most people don't even realize it's running. So, normal operation of a combined heat power plant, even up to a 1 megawatt, the unit itself is going to be in a sound attenuated enclosure. Most likely that's going to be inside a building, and you're not, my experience is there's not a lot of complaints with that normal operations. It's when something goes wrong, or they're in startup mode where they're having to vent steam, or for whatever reason the steam pressure relief valve goes off, or when the building cooling exhaust fans kick on, you'll get some complaints. So that's a louder noise than the actual CHP system itself.
Larry, is there a way that we can satisfy your concerns by having this sort of like tiered? In other words, okay, first test is this, and if there's no resolution, or if there's obviously an issue, then we can go to this.
Yeah, I'm not just as a counselor, I'm not.
I mean, this is going a little beyond just power plants. This is going into everyday operation.
You mean the noise ordinances?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I thought B did it nicely and just let you continue basically with what everybody is working
Yeah,
with
but
now.
Larry's saying that he gets calls all summer long about high pitches. so.
But that wasn't of concern. I mean, you weren't suggesting a different ordinance, were you? I thought you were just sort of sharing that
No,
that's.
I think he was.
Well, I was sharing that Eric had asked the question, are we getting complaints, was he saying we're getting calls, and I'm not sure, some of the calls I've gotten, I'm not sure what categorized complaint, it was sort of like, why was this?
What is it?
Yeah. It kept me, woke my kids up, or kept my kids up, so I was more of a, just speaking personally about the council, I would be curious if you're using the occupied approach, what it actually would be.
Yeah.
What would, would it still be off the bottom of the chart and just something people are noticing? Or is it actually a higher frequency noise that if we were applying the spectral approach, it would actually be potentially a violation? I have no idea.
And that might be something that a group might be willing to just kind of do. It's sort of,
Plan work.
no, I'm thinking, I was actually thinking like the watershed students or somebody that's looking at some of this, that just do some of these readings under the frequency, with the frequency, and see what comes out on the other side, if anything needs to be changed or not. But leave it so that you can still implement, and so that property owners know what the limits are. I mean, that's part of the translation.
Well, I think that's the convenient piece of the smartphones is that, business owner can at least do a screening level analysis without spending a few $1,000 on a meter.
Yeah.
So just a note on the text, I think there's actually an error looking at B. The numbers are derived from the industrial treatment in the Boston ordinance. And here, and I forget where they came from actually, are proposed a differentiation under grid scale power generation facilities. I think they're at least reversed. So certainly it shouldn't be louder at night than
They
during the
should
day.
be
So that
reversed,
needs-
and they should be defined as well, because
Yeah.
I was looking at that and saying, well, anytime, day is any time, so
Yeah.
we've got a redundancy there.
Really meant to follow the current
Yeah.
7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and 9
Right.
p.m. to 7 a.m. model.
Option A has that covered well.
Yeah. So that's just
And
texting the text.
Yep.
So.
Well, but I think that, let me see, hold on a second. But what's the standard? I'm just trying to remind myself here. Hold on. So this would be the standard at the property line for the facility.
Okay. That's the way we do it now.
Okay. Now, maybe this is a question for Mike or Dan, say that 50 dBA at the property line. What if there's a residential zone across the street?
The ordinance already addresses that.
So it's the more restrictive property
Says
the zone would govern.
where the emitting and receiving premises are in different zones, the limits governing the stricter zone shall apply to any regulated noise or vibration entering that zone.
But if you don't have the octave for the more restricted for that zone. I'm saying,
Oh, the octave, yeah.
I'm saying if you take the spectral approach, which is what you've got under B.
Right.
B is essentially the current dBA
Yes.
plus spectral for grid scale.
So it would be the single decibel reading.
So you would go back.
So under the spectral table, what will be the daytime, the nighttime figures are actually the figures from a residential zone. If that's acceptable, or it may not even be necessary to observe the daytime-nighttime distinction in the industrial zone, and simply use the recommended industrial zone spectrum levels. The host, the Boston ordinance.
Mhm.
What do you think, Mike?
It certainly simplifies it.
Yeah. we do have protection for, as John alluded, where that's a residential zone and the lower amount would apply.
Mr. Review, you have 38 in there for 99.
So it's one column, right?
So we're gonna eliminate the anytime column, what's that?
Those are the numbers, those would be the numbers.
The numbers, yeah, I meant
82,
that.
77, those would stay
Right,
as consistently as limits appropriate for an industrial area
Right.
from the model ordinance, the model Boston ordinance.
and it'd be any time in the other,
So
The
it
daytime column.
would be, those would be any time,
right,
and there would not be a second column.
right.
John, you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with applying the grid scale power.
I'm afraid I don't understand it.
Well,
Are we not going to do anything with respect to option A at all now? We'll work on that later.
That's the
Referring
trend.
that to be-
Yeah,
Okay.
so that would come out.
That's what I'd like to see happen.
What?
That's what I'd like to see happen.
Is what?
Option B,
Okay. So when we go to B,
then you go to spectrum, the grid scale power, we'll talk about when we do
that's the box.
Yes.
Okay.
Then one column goes away.
Which column goes away?
What is labeled day?
What?
What is labeled day?
Day, okay.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, one reason those are switched, and the second reason is that it being an industrial zone, one set seems sufficient
Okay.
with the protections available elsewhere in the text for residential
Correct.
zones.
So it's anytime,
83, 82,
Okay.
77, 73.
and the spectral thing also applies, so this is for grid scales,
Correct.
this box.
And the existing
Yeah.
single level decibel readings will apply
Okay.
to all of the uses.
Okay. So no spectral thing yet.
Unless Larry,
That's John's recommendation.
unless Larry wants to do something different.
Well,
The
who
board,
else
this
has-
is the board's recommendation, so.
Who else has whiny stuff, or thundering stuff,
Just FMC, I guess, that's all.
or, I mean,
Well, I think if it was something that was constant, like Eric's,
You can still deal with it.
no, what I'm saying is, we.
I can call Larry,
We would have
he'll take care of it.
so you're assuming that
But-
decibel levels will be adequate for everything else?
No, I'm
except
not saying that at all. I'm saying if we measure decibel levels of what he's
Yeah,
hearing.
probably not a problem,
Not
no.
gonna be any issue at all.
I know.
If we did the spectrum, that would be different, and that's what Larry is suggesting, is that he gets complaints about spectrum.
Yeah.
His question.
So you're getting complaints about it, and so you're saying,
I'm just surprised you don't call the code office, because I've only had one.
okay, but are you proposing that right now we don't?
That was my proposal, and that we look at, when we redo the site plan review ordinance, look at this again, and perhaps determine what we should apply a spectrum level to. I mean, it's obviously generally going to be a manufacturing type facility with equipment. I mean, unless somebody's in their garage grinding cars or something,
Well, there was nameless hospitals system across from the nameless bed and breakfast.
Yeah, that was DB. That was in violation of DB.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna just deal with it later, that's what you're
But
saying?
Yeah.
that's been resolved.
I do have one question.
Maybe we're going to study it.
That's one concern I still have in terms of, maybe I'm misunderstanding this, we're going to a single spectral grid scale
That's the higher.
is, what about those places where industrial zones are in moderate proximity to residential zones? Is this going to be adequate, or should there be, grid scale, and, you know, in the industrial zone, in grid scale
From a spectral
perspective, if it's some lower number, if it's,
Yeah, so if that were the case, you might want to use that first column, because that is the recommended decibel limit per spectrum for residential day.
Or any kind for residential.
Or, yeah. Would that be lower, would be 67, I suppose, well, 68 as opposed to 76, whatever your recommendation is.
that's my only question, is whether there should be I think what John's proposing works fine for staying with DBA for now and using spectral in the industrial zone. My one remaining question is what about those places in the industrial zone in reasonably close proximity to residential zones?
Doesn't the
go with
one
grid
that
scale.
says where it's emitting and receiving in different zones, the more restrictive zones prevail?
But you don't have a standard. You only have the DBA standard at this point. You don't have the spectral standard.
And I thought, John, you weren't saying for the industrial zone, you're saying for grid scale power.
Grid scale power.
So the industrial zone would still be under the DB. Other uses, meaning other buildings.
Okay, we can,
John's only suggesting that, if I understand you correctly, that the spectrum show up only with relationship to the grid scale power grant application.
At least for now.
And that
Okay.
we had to take a chance to take some time to look at what this would mean and where it would appropriately be applied to other uses and zones in the city before making any recommendations for you to implement.
what I was saying, if you go to,
Let me ask you this, if,
Larry,
go ahead.
Peter, if you back up a page, and Mike, you can correct me, on page 11, for the Boston standards, you have the industrial column, which is what we're talking about using for grid scale. But if this was the medical area combining power plant in the medical area in Boston, that would be the standard you would apply within the immediate industrial area. But as you get across the street into the residential area, you would drop down to the next use standard
Yes,
for that power plant.
Right,
yes.
And I'm saying the way it's currently worded, that won't exist here.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So I'm just asking whether there should be two columns here. One is grid scale measured within the industrial park, and the other is grid scale, you know.
Adjudication of those.
residential use.
Yeah, where it abuts other uses or something like that.
So at the property line, I'm just trying to think of where you're measuring. You're measuring,
Because there's no more restrictive use.
Right, there is no more restricted use, that's my point. Peter, I'm sorry, you go please.
just go through that again, where you're gonna measure?
Well, I'll give you just another example. This current standard, you got a power plant in the industrial zone, in the industrial zone.
So I have a piece of land, I have a power plant on it.
Right, it's in the industrial zone.
Yeah, got
You
it.
measure, let's take the high end, 50 dBA at the property line
Yeah.
for that.
My little piece of land, it's
Right,
a
it's
property
50
line, I make
dBA.
50.
But there's only one parcel between it and a residential property.
Okay,
That's not going to drop it from 50 to 38, right?
so you're suggesting there's a second reading that occurs for that power plant wherever the nearest residential line is? So that it has to meet the industrial at its property line, and then it has to meet a residential reading at a residential property line nearby.
That's exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
And I'm saying that's the way, that's the way that's the way we apply both.
Well,
That's-
it does it with DBA,
That's what we do
that's
with
what you gotta do with the
Yep.
spectrum too. You gotta have something in the residential, in the other zone that it's going into, you gotta have.
Well, I see.
So then what you're saying is leave that second column and just list that it has to meet both. It's not one or the other, it meets the one and then it has to meet the other at a residential, at the nearest residential property
Yeah,
line.
zone rather than use.
So,
Yes.
So rather than having indiscriminate residential use in the industrial zone,
Right,
it would really be.
The zone.
residential
Yep.
zone. where that
Okay.
would be.
So we have two columns again.
And the first one says,
Doesn't matter.
And that's the, is that
Crossing.
the appropriate measure, residential day? Is that the appropriate measure? Or you want residential?
don't know.
Residential anytime,
Yeah.
residential night.
Well, is there a day or night under the residential?
Yeah, yeah, it's higher for day, of course. And that's what's shown right now.
Well, what about if we just take the mixed use nights, if that splits the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
What do you think about that, Eric?
I think it's a good idea.
Mixed use night?
If she says it's good, no. Yeah, I know, I see it, yeah.
I'm screwed up.
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
restrictive than day, but it's
This one,
not much more.
mixed use, yeah.
That'll be at the,
That's a good compromise.
Yeah.
at the
Residential zone line.
Mhm.
nearest property line falling within the residential zone.
Yes.
Right. So it's mixed use night, huh?
And you have to meet both. And that's the other thing that has to show up here. It's not one or the other, it's that both have to be met.
Well, chances are if you meet it at the property line, no, that's right.
No, I mean, that
Right,
was
that's
the
right.
argument we
That's
just
why
went
we're
through,
doing it.
that's
why
right.
we're at it.
Which is the same way we do it now. Conceivably, you can have someone, particularly when it's, whatever it was, 85, there's a very real possibility that somebody's meeting 85 in an industrial facility at the property line. And 7 properties over, they're not complying with the residential number then.
Yeah.
That's the way we do enforce it now.
Shouldn't it be any residential zone not in nearest one, because you could have directional on this source, right? The nearest residential zone would literally be 10 feet behind the wall and doesn't get much noise.
Would be,
So
yeah.
where do we stop?
Yeah.
Well, presumably
we
it would
go to-
diminish gradually, so anything further away would not be an issue, right? In the sense that if,
The
So-
further you are away from the sound source, the lower that
So
same sound
you're
source.
unless it's
saying
directional.
the nearest property line in every,
In every direction, and in every
residential
direction,
zone, in
is
every
what I'm
direction.
saying, yeah, in case it is directional, does that make sense?
Well, it certainly, what's happening to me is directional.
It's headed right towards
So
you.
Yeah.
I mean, you sort of have the potential here, for example, I'm just making it up here, that if you're building a facility on this side, it's going to be right up against this hill. So there's not going to be much sound carrying that way. But the other direction could be a far greater vision.
And one could imagine a situation like that, in which literally the nearest residential zone is behind a hill or something, so it wouldn't be irrelevant.
But I mean, you quite possibly are not going to be able to hear a plant at the Hall property, but you can hear it perfectly fine at Walmart.
Well, I mean, if I measured the spectrum of a power plant, or if we adopted this for places like FMC, if I measured it at your house, you're in a residential zone. If it exceeds that amount, then they're in violation.
Right, right.
That's sort of what I was suggesting, the distance doesn't really, the nearest doesn't really matter.
So are we not talking about the nearest residential zone
Yeah,
property
where do you
line?
draw
We're
the
talking
line?
anywhere?
Well, anywhere where John gets a complaint, I guess,
How does John prove that that's the sound from, I mean, I don't know how that works on the enforcement side. That you can say it's, because you know it's coming from that power plant.
What you're saying, I understand fully what you're saying. You know, Eric hears it, but somebody in a residential zone right down next to it might not.
Yeah.
Probably because of his,
Yeah.
Probably the geographical.
What it might say is line of sight.
I would say from an enforcement and evidentiary perspective, it's going to be pretty challenging.
might be. Turn on the air conditioner.
We could just say something, you know, at the, could you just sort of say at the industrial, where the zone abuts a residential zone? Where the zone boundary? Does that simplify it more?
Yeah, I think that certainly is more manageable than
Yeah, it's still
Yeah,
within
every residential
contiguous,
location.
yeah. Yeah,
So we're gonna go with that?
we'll go with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Down at the bottom of that box, it says singe number equivalent.
Yeah, I actually
No.
fixed that at one point. I
Oh,
don't know how you got
I was
the.
gonna ask what that was.
yeah.
Yeah, what you singe yourself.
Mine's a single.
Really?
No, that was still wrong. I fixed it in one place but not the other. That's what happened. Okay.
How'd you get it in part A?
Good heavens.
Yeah, but these things are only 1,001 details about you.
Yeah.
It's, it's strange what spell check will
Yeah.
calibrate.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's progress. So next, and an important change based on Dan's double check, thank goodness, appears in water quantity. Originally, it was recommended that the maximum consumption limit of 2,300,000 gallons be adopted, but Dan has rethought that and now recommends 250,000 gallons.
Yeah, That's based on a 10 to 12 megawatt facility with a open contact cooling tower, so that's a pretty high load.
Again, that's unprocessed source water per day.
Yeah.
So
That
what,
appears on page 14.
what about the issue of, limiting the water sales for a private company? We have a private water company. Is that, are we,
We tell the water company that they can't sell them water.
that they can't sell any more than 250,000
Yeah,
gallons
if they can
of water?
support more, then, I mean, that's the whole thing, we're trying not to draw down the,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
But that's just for a single facility, and if you
Yeah.
have multiple ones, then it's twice that, so.
Is it enough to have the fact that 80% of the water has to be recycled, so they're only buying 20%?
That 250,000 gallons, that includes getting 80% of it back from whatever process.
Well, and also including the fact that we aren't going to jeopardize, and I think this is legitimate, jeopardize pressure.
Right,
You know,
That's in C. That's what you're
that's
talking about.
affecting others.
yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, the water company might have to fix the water line here or something, or make a water.
You could put in there a disclaimer that, this is the guideline or target, unless, the water company says they can provide more. They have to go through a process with the water company, then it doesn't preclude it,
Mhm.
but it forces, again, another process that they have to go through to make sure that the water company can adequately supply this
Oh.
and existing needs.
You could say that in addition, anything over 250,000 must be verified in writing from the water company or
So we
something.
have to demonstrate both available
Yeah.
capacity, available source water and available pressure.
Yeah. Can we get that?
Wouldn't you require that anyway?
Yeah, we have, I don't know about the pressure, we've never asked about pressure. We always have a letter from the water company that
I think I was trying to
Isn't
do a
that
scenario that, because some
supplies it.
private water companies I've seen will it's just kind of pro forma, they look at it revenue.
Yeah, well, that's what exactly.
And we've certainly seen nameless southern cities, I won't name, get in trouble. So I think there's some, I would, this may be a legal question, but where the city's ability to push a burden onto the water company. You say that you can provide that many gallons a day, prove it.
But also keep in mind, this is one of the limiters on the size of the power plant itself. So without saying, you're limited to 20 megawatts, we're using this in a couple other areas to kind of reduce that size. That's a good question. I never thought about the water company.
Yeah. Well, most water companies, I think, are municipal companies,
Municipal,
so
right? Yeah.
it's not really an issue. But in our case, we have
Maybe we should put it.
the most expensive water in the state.
You
I
know,
think.
put that on the side.
Yes, well, sprinklers, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're talking about water right
Well, I know, but it's
This
So-
is probably easier to defend.
now. So do you want to have the capacity for them to exceed 250,000 gallons if they demonstrate sufficient supply and pressure?
I like the way it's written now, but I'm just wondering, is there any legal jeopardy by
I suggest
having that limit?
not to cover it, we leave it the way it is, and maybe let's look at this question a little bit, because even let's assume the council adopts the first reading on the 11th, there's still going to be another 5 weeks. Small details to get fleshed out.
Again, you're not regulating the water company, you're regulating
How much
the
consumption?
the site developer.
Yeah.
So it's what they're gonna use as part of their application.
Right.
You know, and you could require a follow-up, and that they demonstrate that they're not exceeding that.
Does anyone know why when we established the,
And we do require that, yeah.
when we established the industrial park, we didn't either build a water tower or something? Because it's always been an issue about the water pressure out there.
Yeah, that's C.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
She's
no, I'm just
No,
saying, why,
nobody knows why,
I mean,
before all of our time, there's smart people like us.
yeah, and so, so we're requiring them at least to preserve the piddling water pressure that we have now from their depredations.
Yes.
Exactly.
But it isn't helping our situation in
Well,
the industrial park.
You could, you know,
But, I mean, that's,
you could really put the burden on them and say they've got to fix it.
Well,
You know?
The water
You know,
tower.
mitigate it with a water tower, or
Yeah.
jockey pump, or on-site storage.
Yeah, I mean, a big water user in the industrial park, why not? You know?
yeah, I think it's a case where the city just, I mean, in a classic development, you know, the developer would have paid for that expansion, or have built it into some sort of development fees as the parcels are sold, the city just didn't do that.
I mean, utilities do it all the time. Gas company, if you want to build this plant, and their gas line is undersized, they say, not a problem, you can connect, you have to upgrade our system. I put a solar PV system in down in Rhode Island, and the electric utility said, you know, we have plans to upgrade that line in the future, so why don't you just go ahead and take care of it for us? So they stacked, you know, $400,000 onto my project. Before they would give me my interconnect, I had to upgrade their lines. So it's not uncommon to make developers do that.
That's going to set you back for a while, huh?
Just stretches out your payback.
So we stand with the current language then?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just thought we should discuss it, and yeah, I'm fine with it. And quite frankly, if the water company did come after the city for it, probably the city would.
We won't pay the fire hydrant.
Right, that's right.
No, I just want to make sure I understand your concern on that. I mean,
Well,
we're not in any way regulating the water
the
company.
water company,
We're
right?
regulating the user,
Right.
saying you cannot use more than $250,000 for your power.
Gallons, yeah,
Yeah.
right. No, I understand. I understand your point, and I agree with it. Actually, how's that?
Well, we're on the same page.
Well, you know, about C, they either have to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the permitting authority that there will be constant available supply and flows. I mean, if we don't have an adequate supply now in the industrial park, you know, how are they going to do that without putting up a tower and?
Then we'd have to put the tower.
They may have to.
So shouldn't we?
No diminution.
No, I mean, shouldn't we simply require a tower that,
Fix it.
if it's gonna be in the industrial park, I mean, obviously, if it's inadequate now, and we're adding another maximum of 250,000 gallons.
But that might, there are other industrial areas in town. I don't know how it is over, like the business park area there. How's the water pressure over there?
The only place I know that's an issue is the industrial park.
Right. So this would take care of, cover all the industrial areas.
Are we
Is
saying
it line
industrial park
size?
or?
Size of the line is restricting it. I mean, we're
Like
talking 2 miles of pipe, we're talking 500 feet of pipe.
I couldn't answer that.
By increasing the line size by, doubling the diameter, you could fix this problem. Or running a parallel pipe along with it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I thought you get pressure when you make a smaller line.
Well, it restricts it. So the further down you go, the tougher it's gonna be to maintain that pressure.
Yeah, I thought it was, had something to do with the gradient or something.
I think it does. The distance and
You know, once you start drawing on it, for whatever reason, just the capacity within that pipe is small.
Maybe we should have you call.
They're probably already applying it.
Uh-oh.
Don't know it.
Well, I mean, you know,
There's all kinds of options, though.
I mean, it doesn't sound horribly expensive to put up a, water tank, does it? I mean, this is gonna be a big outfit.
what's the water tower gonna cost?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
At least $1 million.
I would think we would have to give them the options. It can't be just the power. It would, upgrade the lines, put a lift booster pump station in, or again, a storage tank on their facility. That's probably what they'd opt for, but as long as it doesn't impact this condition anymore, that should be satisfactory.
With that amount of usage, would it be likely that they might have to do something in order to not affect these other things?
Again, it depends on the time of day and things like that. I'm trying to remember what I broke that down to as far as gallons per minute. Yeah, the system should be able to handle that.
So, but going to Carol's point though, should the test be no diminution or no reduction in
Yeah, if it's already inadequate.
the, yeah,
Yeah, I see.
just from a, consistent regulatory approach, and that's
Yeah.
the standard, usually.
Right.
You're also sort of writing a standard that for whatever this
Does that bring
issue
that
is.
Don't make it worse.
Well, whatever this issue is, they're going to be safely for.
Yeah.
How much?
That could be running a new line from River Lake, I'm being facetious here, but.
Yeah.
It's on my computer.
So I'll make that change.
I think I might have been around 150 for that, and then I rounded up.
Yeah, that's a good point, Carol. Rather than sufficient, because it ain't sufficient now.
No.
Yeah.
And we don't know what,
Yeah,
as I said, we don't know what bottleneck is.
It's good
If
for
it's
our-
100 feet of line on Broadway, that might not be a big deal. If it goes all the way to the storage tower at the golf course, that could be very expensive.
But they might be taking water from the wastewater treatment plant, so that would change things.
That might be create a strong incentive.
Yeah, right, that's
I
true.
mean, if it's adequate all over town except the industrial park, it must be geographically confined in some way that would, be inexpensive to fix. I don't know.
Certainly well below the source, just probably pipe size at this point.
You must do periodic hydrogen flow testing, right?
And the water company does.
The water company, but those records are generally
Yeah.
publicly
The
available.
fire department knows what they got for pressure on hydrants.
That would be telling information. If you've got, just outside of the industrial park, a flow that's 6,000 gallons a minute, and you get inside the industrial park and now you've got, 300 gallons a minute.
Yeah, I could make one call and find out.
Exaggerations, of course, but
If you could get, what was the term you just used?
hydrant flow tests.
You get the hydro flow test data.
Well, I can probably.
What's the pressure, I might have missed it, what's the pressure that the system operates at in the pipes in the ground? 40 pounds?
We got a lot of pressure in Rockland, a lot of pressure.
I got 75 pounds at my house.
I think
It's heavy around here.
somewhere. Right, and it's really high.
That is high.
It is, it's super.
For water distribution.
I got my brother's house on the Beach Street's got some old fixtures, and they flush the toilet with it. So much pressure, it really is.
Uh-oh, John's leaving.
No,
So,
trying to get an answer.
so the next issue that we've tackled is screening and buffering with respect to fuels and hazardous materials on 22. We had provided for protections relating to above-ground fuel storage and hazardous materials storage, and someone suggested that we also have protections from actual processes that are actually using hazardous materials.
Right.
That was you, Dan?
I think Larry's the one that brought it up,
So that's
but definitely the equipment may need some emissions controls technologies, ammonia, urea, may have caustic and acid on site, so that would definitely be something you want to protect against.
But I'm not sure this accomplishes that then, if that's the goal, emissions controls.
Okay.
So maybe I need to work on that. That
I can provide-
here's where I attempted to address that concern. May not have gotten there, all the way there yet. So we'll get some additional language there.
I'll send something your way tomorrow.
Thank you.
Can you think of anything else, Mike, as far as chemical? I mean, if it's cooling tower, it's gonna need some type of chemicals, but those are pretty standard. You know, the only ones that would raise concern are ammonia.
Yeah, well, when we wrote this, we were thinking of the ammonia.
Yeah.
Because I think the language we had sent was actually, it would say something like scrubber.
Was there a specific language?
What if you had a solar PV panel manufacturer that wanted to come to town and now is producing semiconductors here? I mean, that cocktail becomes a totally different, I mean, you're familiar with what you've got now because that's what you've got and that's front and center of your minds, but, I'm just
And we're very
to
simple.
tease you a little bit. Is there, there is the potential that another, manufacturer could come to town and bring up another whole list of chemicals that are hazardous
This isn't confined right now to one chemical.
So this section is again one of those that applies to everybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, the 2 points we had noted was chemicals used in stack scrubbers or to treat water. Those are the two primary places.
Why do you think I think your language is fine, Kevin. Why did you think it was maybe
Well,
inadequate?
Because it's really just dealing with aesthetics. So the regulation proposed is adequately screened and then an emergency response plan. It doesn't get to actually limiting emissions of caustic odor.
One other thing about talking about, we're talking about this. We're talking about emissions, just make sure you have adequate safety and adequate.
Yeah, storage and containment.
Maybe I misunderstood you when you were talking about emissions controls there.
Yeah,
That's how the chemicals were used.
that's how they'd be used.
But the stink doesn't wander beyond where it's
Well,
supposed
no, so these chemicals would be what's being injected in the flue gas exhaust out of the system to reduce the nitric oxide emissions and things like that.
You will give me additional thoughts on that anyway.
Adam said that he's not convinced that there is an issue over there, that Fisher Engineering was able to put in a huge sprinkler system with absolutely no issue.
Put in what? I'm sorry.
A very large sprinkler system.
Well, maybe
Yeah,
that's
but they put pumps
outdated
in, right?
information from the comprehensive plan.
Yeah,
Maybe the
I'm
pipes
sure
have
they
been
do.
upgraded and we just don't have present recollection of it. They've done work on South Main Street, certainly, the water company.
How many buildings in town do you have fire pumps operating in?
Sprinklers?
Sprinkler fire pumps, yeah.
Fire pumps for sprinklers?
Yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't answer that.
I'm sure
that
that
could be town.
Fisher, I think Fisher did put
I'm
pumps
not
in.
aware of any of it.
Yeah, so then you've probably got pressure and volume, because
Yeah.
those two
Yeah.
are what
Yeah, and he thought it
drives
was
the need
more,
for a fire pump.
he wasn't sure. He wasn't going to tell me. So
Oh.
he wasn't convinced there is an issue.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do, Larry? Did you say, look into that with the water company?
You were saying there should be public records of the hydrant test.
Anytime we design a new building or go into an existing building, that data is something that we need to be able to adequately size the system. And that also drives the need to educate us whether or not we need to do a fire pump.
Right.
Or even a domestic water pressure boosting
Right.
system. I mean, there's a lot of very useful applications of that data that drive building design.
Adam probably has it. I know we get, in the past, we've periodically gotten it from main water.
Yeah, so let's, if you won't mind asking for it, circulate it around.
You're talking about hydrant tests.
Same line.
Yeah, John, I do remember Fisher proposing a pump
Yeah.
with a sprinkler system.
It's a big
Well,
sprinkler.
and that could be, so maybe what Adam's talking about is they were able to get enough water. Okay, so it's not so much the volume as the pressure, so.
Right.
And that's the issue, it's sort of a combination of two things.
Mhm.
So the final area of work, since the public forum was on beefing up the inspection and maintenance programs with some additional recommended requirements. So that language appears on page 24, where we've added annual testing for compliance with the air emissions licenses. Added a requirement that for piping testing that be done in the presence of the fire chief or his designee, so we have a municipal official present. And then, again, brought in the concept of revocation of C of O if there's non-compliance with the program and a failure to correct. And I sort of grabbed a 10-day cure period that might be a little tight, but it's there as a placeholder for that enforcement mechanism.
What is water not moving zones? I guess that's not really tested. Water usage?
Well, yeah, the water supply is addressed under water supply,
Yeah.
or they're required to demonstrate on an annual basis.
Okay.
I guess we could reiterate it, but
No,
I think this is sort of somewhat of a different,
Yeah, that makes sense.
this is more mechanics, I think.
Should the grade testing for, in addition to air emissions, in addition to the federal, state, or state requirements, whatever the planning board and council agrees to with regard to the sort of more stringent requirements that we discussed earlier?
We could get the,
I mean, the reductions?
Yeah, or testing to verify those reductions.
Yeah.
Because they could say, they could take somebody off it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's expressed
Yeah, I think you're right.
under air emissions, but it'd be good to repeat it here.
because you, what you essentially do is taking those the data they're supplying with the state and the Fed, and seeing whether it's meeting what they propose.
Kevin, going back to what Nate said, do we? Wait for him to finish. Would it maybe be a good idea to add, I don't know if it's a 7 or somehow included here, and all other testing requirements in this, I mean, something that says the other requirements that aren't listed here. I'm not sure how you say that. Just
Catch-all.
exactly,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't, so they don't think that because that doesn't show up on this list, it's not required. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well,
It's not there, I don't have to do it.
right. Well, that may be what they look at annually and not go into the ordinance itself. Yes, Mr. Chair.
So, any other issues around the?
And one I'm trying to
Oh, yeah, of course.
I think we never reached resolution over what Peter brought up earlier about well,
The trouble, right?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally sort of values or look at the question about the reduction, about whether to include that or how to send that.
I think we decided on a separate memo.
Oh, is that, all right,
Yeah.
then that's fine.
It's
All right,
it's
yeah.
staying 25%.
Right.
Leave
But
it as
in
it
the
is.
cover memo, you were going to identify it as
As
an
an
issue
issue.
that council might want
That
to
sounds
be
good.
sensitive.
Grapple with, yeah.
Let me ask you guys, how, have there been tremendous improvements in all of these things, as far as efficiency in the last, say, 20 years or so?
I would say absolutely, but even in the last 5. And with the EPA's Clean Power Plan and all the changes with more stringent emissions rules, the equipment manufacturers are forced to improve their combustion process or add scrubbers on the back end to address that.
So, when you said earlier on, I can't remember what term you used, it was like deal breaker or something for the 25%, that showstopper, you know,
Yeah.
Which raised my question.
Yeah, that whole thing may improve in a fairly short time, so that.
But again, every time they have to, the engine manufacturers are going to have their standard package. If they have to go beyond that, they're adding additional emissions control technologies, or if they still can't meet that 25% with their system, like Larry said, now they need to look out and upgrade somebody's boiler. So it's really the cost of trying to meet that 25% reduction that'll eventually deter people. It's all doable, it's just it's going to cost money.
And my question was just that there be an honest conversation on council's part, what's the intent?
Yeah.
I didn't want to, be hiding something. I think it's important, it's an important point that Dan's made.
Without a district heating system, and without pipeline gas, a grid scale power plant probably isn't going to be economical up here.
But we don't need to stew too much about the possibility of a biomass thing, we think.
No, I think we still put the provisions in there to make sure we're protected, but biomass is an option. You definitely would want biomass only in the industrial zone. Even if it's a smaller biomass, maybe a school, depends on how big the system is.
So we got emissions, and we also got traffic issues.
Traffic, dust, things like that.
Storage. Well, the storage comes in there too, right?
Yeah, most of them, again, depending on the size of the system, it's going to be a small storage system that's enclosed, usually attached to the facility. Yeah, hopper. Usually, school size, even the hospital size, it's going to be a self-unloading truck that empties down into a pit with garage doors and all that.
So Mark Taylor that just did the...
That's a big system.
Yeah. How big is that? Do you remember? That plant's right downtown.
I think that might be steam only, district heating. I don't think there's power.
It is just district.
It's just district. Those were 2 AFS boilers. I just talked to the AFS sales rep last week. They were big. It's probably 1,000 horsepower boiler in there. They're big. That was a very difficult, because we've been on that job, trying to, the truck traffic there was going to be a nightmare, because it's in the municipal parking lot, or it's actually the state capital parking lot. So, and you had a river. The river was 10 feet away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a tough one.
That's nice. So that's the highest fit I've ever really seen.
Yeah.
How do we move forward? Cover letter, I guess, or something.
Yeah, but can we